Why, Ezene? Why would you lie to me about my own son?
I'm sorry, Emeka. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. Please forgive me.
There is a kind of man that Lagos will never celebrate. He does not trend on Twitter. He does not get a Father's Day post with 1,000 likes. Nobody makes a reel about him. Nobody sits on a podcast and cries happy tears describing what he did. He gets up before 5 a.m. He pays school fees. He goes to parents' evening. He teaches a child how to tie a tie, how to speak to strangers, how to handle money. He invests everything into building a human being from scratch. And then one afternoon, a DNA result lands in his phone. And the number on the screen says 0%. This is the story of Emeka Obi. A good man. A faithful man. A man who did everything right and still lost everything. Stay with me. Because this one is going to hurt. Lagos. Early 2000s. The city was loud then the way it is loud now, just louder, with less data to drown in. Lekki was still becoming itself. Victoria Island was where money went to eat itself. And places like Surolia and Yaba were full of the real Nigeria, the Nigeria of people who woke up every day and chose to build something from nothing. It was not a bad time to be young and ambitious. If you had a degree, a sharp head, and the kind of hunger that didn't let you sleep past 6, you could carve a life out of this city. Many did. Emeka was one of them. He had come to Lagos from Onitsha at 22 with 2 bags, a mechanical engineering degree from UNN, and a stubbornness that his mother called faith and his friends called madness. By 30, he had a job at an oil services firm, a 2-bedroom flat in Surolia, and a wife he had married in a ceremony his entire compound had attended. He had, by every measure his father's generation recognized, made it. He was happy. That part matters. He was genuinely, quietly, completely happy. He was not flashy. He drove a Camry he had maintained so faithfully it ran like a new car 7 years after he bought it. He wore ironed shirts and polished shoes and called his mother every Sunday whether he had news or not. He remembered birthdays. He gave without announcing it. When his wife Ada got pregnant in their 2nd year of marriage, Emeka did not just show up, he showed up completely. He read pregnancy books. He woke at 3 a.m. for cravings. He drove to 3 different markets because she wanted a specific type of aqua and no substitute would do. When their son Chidi was born, Emeka held him in the hospital corridor and cried the way grown men only cry when they think nobody is watching. This is it, he told his best friend Femi on the phone that night. This is the whole point. Everything else, the money, the hustle, all of it, this is what it was for. Chidi became Emeka's world. Not in the way people say that casually. In the way that means every decision he made from that moment pointed toward that child. He changed departments at work, less travel. He turned down a promotion to Aberdeen, too far from his son. He coached Chidi's football team on Saturday mornings even though he had never played a competitive match in his life. He was, without question, the most present father anyone in that compound had ever seen. This is the whole point. Everything else, the money, the hustle. This is what it was for. Chidi was 11 when he fell off his bicycle and needed a minor procedure at the hospital. Routine. Nothing dangerous. But when the doctor reviewed his blood group and mentioned it casually in the corridor, something shifted in Emeka's face that he could not explain and did not examine. He told himself that these things were more complicated than secondary school biology and he should not read meaning into something he barely understood. He went home. He made dinner. He helped Chidi with his maths homework. He laughed at a joke on NTA. But the thought, small and cold and terrible, had found its way in. He did not speak about it for 2 years. 2 years of looking at Chidi across the dining table and doing mathematics in his head that he did not want to do. 2 years of watching Adi sleep and thinking about a question he was terrified to ask because he already suspected he knew the answer. Some men open that door quickly. Emeka was not that kind of man. He was the kind of man who chose hope over certainty for as long as he possibly could. Until he couldn't anymore. Until his cousin, the doctor in Abuja, visited for Christmas, mentioned the blood types over pepper soup without knowing the weight of what he was saying. And Emeka looked at him across the table and could not finish his food. He collected the samples himself, careful, methodical, the way he approached every problem in his engineering career. He sent them off. He waited 3 weeks. He checked his email every morning before Adiz woke up. And while he waited, he watched. He watched Chidi. The way he tilted his head when he was thinking. The shape of his nose. The sound of his laugh. He searched for himself in that child the way a man searches for his keys after dark, frantic, desperate, hoping he'd just been looking in the wrong place. He found nothing he recognized. And everything he had always loved. He watched Adiz too. Not with anger, not yet. With the particular sadness of a man who sees a thing and cannot unsee it. She was good to him. She had always been good to him. She cooked. She called when she was running late. She laughed at his jokes, even the ones that weren't funny. That almost made it worse. On the morning the email came, Emeka was alone in the flat. Chidi was at school. Adiz was at work. He sat at the kitchen table with his laptop. He opened the email. He read the number. 0% probability of biological paternity. He read it 4 times. He closed the laptop. He opened it again. He read it again. Then he sat there for 1 hour and 40 minutes without moving. Not crying. Not calling anyone. Not doing anything at all. Just sitting. In the kitchen he had paid for, in the flat he had furnished, in the life he had built, understanding, very slowly, that the ground beneath all of it had never been real. He did not shout. He did not throw anything. He simply placed the printed email on the kitchen counter, pushed it toward her, and waited. She looked at it. She looked at him. And then she did something Emeka had not expected. She didn't deny it. She sat down. She put her hands flat on the table. And she told him everything. There had been a man. Before they married, just before, in the final weeks of their courtship. A colleague. A mistake, she said. Just once, she said. She had not known she was pregnant when she married Emeka. She had only suspected the truth much later, and by then Chidi was already here and Emeka was already in love and she had made a choice, the wrong choice, to say nothing. I told myself it didn't matter, she said. He was yours. You were his father. I told myself the biology didn't matter. Emeka looked at her for a long time. Then he said, quietly, it mattered to me. It was my right to know. And you took that from me. He picked up his car keys. He left the flat. He drove to the third mainland bridge and parked on the side of the road, which is illegal, which he knew, which he did not care about. He sat there watching the Lagos lagoon go dark under the evening sky and he tried to locate his feelings, the way he would locate a fault in a machine, methodically, systematically. What he found was not anger. Not really. What he found was grief. Not grief for the marriage. Not even grief for the lie. Grief for Chidi. Because Chidi was innocent. Chidi was real. Chidi had called him daddy since the day he could speak. And not one word of that had been a lie. What do you do with a love that is completely true, when the foundation underneath it was completely false? Emeka and Adiz separated 6 months later. It was not explosive. It was quiet in the way only long grief is quiet, two people who had been something important to each other unraveling carefully so the child between them would not hear the tearing. He kept seeing Chidi. Every weekend without fail. School runs. Football matches. Birthday cakes. Nothing about that changed, because Emeka had decided, in that car on the bridge, that the love was not the lie. The love was the only real thing left. But something in Emeka had broken that would not fully repair. His colleagues said he seemed quieter. His mother said he had an old look in his eyes. Femi, his best friend, said Emeka laughed the same way but stopped a second earlier than he used to, as if he had remembered mid-laugh that something was different now. He dated again years later. A woman named Ngozi, a lawyer, patient and warm. She knew about Chidi. She respected how Emeka loved him. She was, by every measure, a good match. But Emeka found it difficult to trust at the depth that love requires. Not because of anger. Because of knowing now, in a way he hadn't before, that you could give everything and still not know the whole truth of what you had given it to. He told Ngozi once, "I'm not afraid of being hurt. I'm afraid of being wrong about somebody again." Ngozi held his hand and said, "That's not a wound, Emeka. That's just what wisdom costs sometimes." He thought about that for a long time. And Chidi, who was now 15, lanky and funny and studying for his WAC, sat across from Emeka at their usual EBA spot one Saturday afternoon and said, without looking up from his phone, "Dad, I know you know. Mom told me. I want you to know it doesn't change anything for me. You're still my dad." Emeka looked at his son. At this boy he had held in a hospital corridor and cried for. At this human being he had coached and driven and fed and stayed up for. And something in his chest, not all of it, but something, began to unknot itself. Here is what this story is really about. It is not about betrayal, though there was betrayal. It is not about DNA, though DNA broke something open that day. It is not even about Adiz, who made a choice that was wrong and knew it and lived with the weight of knowing it every single day. This story is about what happens when you love something so fully, so completely, that the love itself becomes the truth, even when everything around it turns out to be a lie. The ancient Igbo understanding of fatherhood was never purely biological. Anina, the one who is a father, was the one who showed up. Who stayed. Who built. Who chose, every morning, to be responsible for another human life. Emeka was broken by a deception he did not deserve. That is real. His pain was real and it was valid, and you are allowed to feel it on his behalf. But here is the thing the story leaves us with: the love he gave Chidi was not wasted. It was not made false by a number on a screen. Chidi is who he is, in part, because of every Saturday morning, every school run, every EBA lunch, everything Emeka chose. That is not nothing. In many ways, that is everything. And the real lesson, the old lesson, dressed in a Lagos suit and living in a Surolia flat, is this. The man who raises the child is the father. Blood tells you where a person came from. Love tells you who stayed. If this story hit you somewhere real, that means it was supposed to. These are not just Lagos stories. They are not just Nigerian stories. They are human stories that our grandparents carried in their mouths long before we had YouTube or phones or DNA tests. The questions they were asking then are the same ones we are still asking now. What is family? What is loyalty? What does a good man owe to a child who needed him? If you are somebody who believes those questions matter, this channel is for you. Subscribe to our channel. And we post new videos every week. Don't miss the next one. Drop a love in the comments if Emeka's story stayed with you. What would you have done in his place?